Handy Dart service per senior was dropping even before the pandemic. And in 2022, TransLink only provided half the Handy Dart trips per person 65 and over as they did in 2008. TransLink's Handy Dart operation has been in the hands of 4 different corporations over the last few years, which obviously makes it less desirable workplace for anyone looking for stable long-term employment. My report highlights that although the TransLink Mayor's Council identified the need for more Handy Dart service, given the population of seniors continually growing in 2017. The Transport 2050 plan contains no real acknowledgement of the need for increased Handy Dart service. The report also documents how in-house operations with permanent depots are needed to make electrification of the Handy Dart practical. Public Handy Dart provision would speed the transition to clean public transit system for seniors and especially people with disabilities. Please take the time to read my report and act within your jurisdiction as Mayor's Council members and your broader mandate as elected representatives to ensure that Metro Vancouver is advancing towards access for everyone. Thank you. Eric Doherty, registered professional planner. Now I would like to say a few words on behalf of the council.
Sir, I apologize, but we're well past the 3 minutes, which is afforded for public delegations. But I do thank you for your comments on behalf of Mr. Doherty. Thank you. The next speaker is Mark Beeching.
Good morning. I hope you can all hear me. Thank you for the First Nations acknowledgement. As a short introduction, I started driving Handy Darts in 1980, just around the time that Handy Dart was formed. I have been a trainer. I've been the union president. I represent the men and women that provide this service and who braved COVID, who every day are being injured through poor procedures that can't seem to be changed. And I'm going to also speak for the passengers who they love and who I love. Those people are subject to a system that isn't about evolution, it's about profit. It's about providing profit for individuals who sell you a bill of goods. And it's time for a change. It's time for people with disabilities and seniors to be given the same opportunities that people that ride conventional buses in the Lower Mainland have. And that is a system where when changes occur, whether it's for safety, whether it's for improved service, those changes don't end up in a C-bin when a new contractor comes in. I'm asking you for fiscal responsibility, or to support us in fiscal responsibility. Why are we supporting and subsidizing profit to create a system that has no stability and not subsidizing the clients and workers' service and the workers that provide this service. What is wrong with providing a decent wage and decent conditions for people with disabilities? Why am I here? I know that you have been, your powers have been eviscerated by a former provincial government, and I will commit that our local will do everything it can to give you power, because the reason I'm speaking to you today is because you are here because of your constituents, and you are accountable to your constituents. And I care about your constituents, so do you. I'm speaking to you as human beings. I'm asking you to read the report that we commissioned by Eric, but I'm also going to be Mr. Buddha is going to be handing out the report, and I'm sorry I didn't bring enough. He's going to be giving you electronic versions, but he's also going to provide you with a letter that we're asking people to sign. I have to say that I have on my phone right now a video that was leaked to me by a passenger who had a 10-month sojourn with an infection because she was put on a cab and the cab driver didn't tie her down, slammed on his brakes, her leg was hit, and she had 10 months of recovery. My mother had a cracked vertebrae. My mother and dad took Handy Dart, and a cab driver was shoving the back of her scooter to try to jam her into a vehicle that he didn't tie her down in. People don't deserve that kind of treatment. They deserve a public transit that is provided by public transit. And one thing I want to say, we have over 80 members injured, mostly drivers. I've tried to change a policy that I believe that has affected it, but I've said I want the facts. I don't want to provide you with a proposal to change without the facts. This company has been bought by TransDev, and guess what? They say they can't access their injury reports. Power BI isn't accessible to them. So they can't provide me with that information. Basic information that would help us provide a policy that would reduce our injury rates isn't available to the people to the person that represents the workers. I have run out of time. I want to thank you all. I want to end this by asking you to reach out to us, but also to look at the letter, consider signing it, and to please read the report. And as I've committed to you, that we will work with you to try to give you the power that you deserve and the power that your constituents deserve, I will ask that you commit to creating a better system. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beeching. I appreciate your acknowledgement of the limitations, very significant limitations that this body has with respect to the issues that you've raised. But I can assure you that every member of this Mayor's Council is a very strong advocate for our residents. So thank you. Next speaker is Luella Vincent.
Good morning. My name is Luella Vincent, and I thank you for acknowledging the land that we live on. I am a regional vice president for the Hospital Employees Union and the current president of the New West District Labour Council. And I'm here to ask you to sign on to the open letter to Rob Fleming to step in and direct TransLink board. I gave you some of my notes, but I'm going to speak from a perspective of someone who works in the field that has to deal with the taxi drivers and the TransLink that takes and brings our individuals to our day program. So I'll just go through that if I may. The fact that we can't, I use the big we, keep drivers for a long period of time is very difficult for the people that we support. It's important to our individuals that come to us to feel safe and be treated in a friendly kind manner, and the TransLink drivers do that. Unfortunately, not all the taxi drivers do. It could be because they're not trained the way the TransLink drivers are, and like me, maybe it just doesn't come natural. For me, it's natural to be kind and to be considerate, but not everybody looks at their job the same way I do. Why can't they retrain staff? I don't understand. It could be the way that we treat the drivers. I don't know. I don't talk to the drivers about that because that's their business and not mine. But it does challenge me to understand why every time I go out to ask someone who's driving to help me take someone down the stairs, because it's difficult for one person to do that, the same person isn't there and don't understand why I'm asking, because they don't understand the needs of the people that ride that bus, which is important to know. There are considerations for securing the wheelchairs properly to make sure that people are dropped off and picked up at correct times in correct places. We have incidences of our individuals being dropped at the front door, which is kept locked, and we don't go in through the front door, so they have been at that door and we wondered where they were. Now, the kind of people that I support do have some mental difficulties and physical difficulties, so having to walk around that close to the street is very dangerous. So these things are important. It's important that we keep people that know what they're doing all the time when they're dealing with seniors and disabilities. There has been some concern with the taxi drivers bullying to get a tip, and the staff don't have money to tip. We aren't paid that much money, that we won't get reimbursed. So there has been some difficulties when taxi drivers have brought our individuals to the program. It's not door to door, it's curb to curb, and this causes problems, as you can imagine, with people with wheelchairs and unstable in mind and body when they're dropped off and left in the middle of the driveway. They don't bring them to the door. I'm talking about the taxi drivers. I would like you to keep in mind that these are your moms and dads someday. These are your brothers and sisters. These are your cousins. And we need to take care of everybody. So by keeping TransLink in-house with trained drivers under a board that can monitor and keep track of the things that need to be kept track of is important. This is important. So again, I'm asking you to sign on to the open letter to Rob Fleming to step in and direct the TransLink board. And I thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And our final speaker is Nathan Davidovich.
Thank you, Chair and members. Just before I start my brief, I would like to thank you for bringing these meetings back to Metrotown. TransLink left Metrotown 10 years ago, and I appreciate you bringing it back. I mean, millions in rent could have been saved if TransLink cooperated with Metro Vancouver and bought office space in Metrotown instead of renting in Sapperton. But anyhow, so I'll start my 3 minutes now. Yesterday, I was interviewed by Surrey Talk Radio for 15 minutes about all the problems in Surrey and south of the Fraser River, which there are many. But I'm talking about Report 5.1, which is basically transit funding across Canada. This 5-page report is just a summary. We need a proper, much more detailed report, as I recommended in my 10-page submissions. So that's what's needed. In this 5-page report, there is no mention that Metro Vancouver fares, on the average, are the highest in Canada. Straight from the Canadian Urban Transit Association fact book, TransLink average fare $2.68, Calgary $1.68, Edmonton $1.59, Montreal $1.80, Ottawa $2.08, and TTC in Toronto is 229. These are the 2021 statistics. But, it's even worse now as TransLink is proposed to increase the fares July 1st. The signs are already at the bus stops telling people. TransLink has an unfair three-zone fare structure from 1984. So you can stop the death spiral of transit in Metro Vancouver today, cancel the fare increase for July 1st, and conduct a proper review of transit fares with common sense recommendation. Return the bus service to pre-COVID level as soon as possible. I know Mayor Brody, he's the only longtime mayor of this council. He's been here for a long time, and he supports the return of the 480 UBC bus. But TransLink staff do not want to listen to him for some reason. Over 1 million riders took the 480 bus in 2019, and it's been canceled. There's been all kinds of problems over the years, and unfortunately, no other transit system in Canada, has all these problems that we have because they are municipally based, basically. And as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, yeah, there is things that the BC government should change. And
We'll have to ask you to wrap up your remarks.
yeah, and so hopefully you'll consider my recommendations and try to get a full report on transit funding across Canada so you can compare properly exactly what's happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. All right, the next item is a report of the chair. I want to start off just by commenting on our location. As you know, we've decided to move our meetings to Metro Vancouver's offices for two reasons. First, TransLink does not have the capacity to deliver hybrid meetings, and starting next month, we will have this capacity because of the move to this purpose-built meeting room. And number two, TransLink's meeting facilities were just a little too small to comfortably house our council staff and the public, which obviously is not an issue here. So I want to extend my thanks and appreciation to Metro Vancouver Chair George Harvey, as well as Vice Chair John McEwen, the Commissioner, and Metro Vancouver staff for accommodating our request and welcoming us as tenants. While we're still part of the TransLink family, we now have a more comfortable and effective location for our meetings. With that, I want to move on to our report back to the public and our council on the recently launched Access for Everyone campaign. As you know, we launched this campaign back on May 12th as a multi-pronged effort to engage with the public to work to ensure that senior governments are ready to begin delivering our Access for Everyone plan, also called the 10-year priorities, starting next year. As one part of this campaign, a group of mayors traveled to Ottawa from May 15th to 17th to bring our message of the importance of transit and our expansion plans to MPs. We met with 22 members of parliament from all parties over 3 days, including the leaders of the official opposition in the NDP, the Minister and Shadow Minister of Infrastructure, and the BC caucuses of all parties. Yesterday, I was pleased to join Metro Vancouver Chair Harvey to present to the BC Legislature's pre-budget consultation process to impress upon MLAs the urgency of acting now. I believe our efforts are making an impact by raising awareness of our challenges, our needs, but more importantly, our plan. And they're laying the groundwork to return in the fall with a more specific set of proposed projects and services from the Access for Everyone plan for funding in the 2024 federal budget. We know that these are important first steps, but they're not the only ones. It will take sustained and persistent effort on behalf of our residents, and I know that our council is committed to do that. We'll be launching the next phase of the campaign next week to engage residents and key stakeholders in our efforts to put pressure on federal and provincial governments. As mentioned, we'll have both federal and provincial pre-budget submissions with specific projects and funding requests that we will need to share with all parties in both Ottawa and Victoria. So our work continues, and I know that I speak for all members of this council when I say this. We will not waver, we will not stop. We will keep fighting for the transit that the residents and businesses of our region need and deserve. Thank you very much, and are there any questions? Seeing none, can I have a mover for the report? Move, second. All's in favor? Opposed and carried. Right, next is a report from TransLink Management. I'll turn it over to Kevin Quinn.
You can just use the clicker or the, yeah, there you go.
Good. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Good to see you all this morning, and I'm pleased to be here to provide the TransLink management update. And in my management report today, I'll be providing updates on ridership, safety on our system, our real estate development program, and work underway at Phibbs Exchange, and on the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain project. I'll also share some of the ways we've been connecting with communities in the region. I want to note that this week is National Accessibility Week, and that's a great opportunity to highlight the work that we're doing to remove barriers for members of the community and reflect on our ongoing efforts to become a more accessible and more inclusive system. As you know, and as you've heard this morning, TransLink plays a very critical role in making the region more accessible, making it easier for people of all ages and of all abilities to connect to the people and places that matter most. I want to note that we're proud of the service that we provided in 2022. Our contractor that delivers HandyDart service overwhelmingly met demand, accommodating 99.6% of all trips that were requested at an on-time performance of 92%. We did deliver fewer trips in 2022 than pre-pandemic years because there was less demand for the service. Not because of issues with budget or resources. And I want to note that we're absolutely committed to continuing to provide high quality HandyDart service and expansion, which is part of our Access for All 10-year priorities that we talk about so frequently, which includes plans to expand the service by 60% over a 10-year period and includes exploring 24 hours a day service. But we're not waiting until the Access for Everyone plan is fully funded to make improvements to HandyDart service. We're very focused on improving the customer experience with service improvements like extending the reservation booking window to increase flexibility for our customers, introducing age-based concession fares, which we did last year, reducing fares for 70% of our customers, as well as bringing HandyDart into the Compass program, making it easier to use all of our services with one card. And in addition, we have a number of programs and initiatives that create opportunities for more independent travel. And recent work includes initiatives that improve accessibility for customers with sight loss. We're making great progress on installing over 8,000 braille and tactile signs at our bus stops. We're testing a wayfinding technology pilot and are currently gathering user feedback. And we've installed tactile walking surface indicators at bus stops and bays on TransLink owned and leased property. And so, as you can see, there's been significant work and attention to this over the past few years to make our system more accessible all. But I want to be clear that by no means are we done. We're going to continue to ensure that we have a highly accessible, inclusive, and safe system that welcomes all members of our diverse communities to transit. I'd like to provide a brief ridership update. For the week of May 15th, 2023, we had over 7.7 million boardings across our transit system. And the TransLink average system-wide ridership has been at about 84% for the past couple of months, and for the last 2 weeks reached 88% of pre-pandemic levels. And as of last week, weekend ridership reached 99%. It's great to see customers continuing to return to transit. And that said, just looking at these percentages doesn't demonstrate the nuances of our system's ridership growth and trends. For example, we have the same number of total customers today as we did in 2019. About 400,000 unique people every day take transit. However, some of those customers that used to take transit 5 days a week to get to their office job, for example, are now only doing that trip 2 or 3 days a week. Moving forward, we're continuing to look beyond just measuring ridership as a percentage of pre-COVID levels to better understand how our customers are using the system. So, for example, we're seeing extremely high year-over-year growth. System-wide, there's been significant ridership growth. All subregions saw growth of 20% or more. And the Southeast led the region with 36%. And this far exceeds periods of highest ridership growth in 2019 and earlier. And while we expect growth rates to settle back down, the current extremely high growth rates demonstrate how rapidly our system is changing and evolving, and we need to be prepared to meet this need. And we're not just seeing year-over-year growth as we've recovered from the pandemic. Ridership in the Southeast region has grown 15% since 2019. And to give kind of a visual of what this means, recovery is welcome news. It's great to see our trains so busy, so well used. But I want to paint the picture of what this looks like, because when a trip is overcrowded for at least part of the trip, what this means is that all seats are full, standing space is occupied. Accessing the doors can be very difficult for our passengers, and standing passengers sometimes need to step off the vehicle to let others exit and then board back on the vehicle. And pass-ups are likely at some stops. And current overcrowding levels are beginning to resemble pre-COVID numbers. At peak periods, our customers face overcrowding on buses, which really impacts the customer experience. And right now, in the PM peak, 1/3 of bus trips in Vancouver, UBC, and 1/4 of bus trips in the Southeast are overcrowded. These are comparable to the rates of overcrowding in both subregions in 2018. I want to be really transparent today that this overcrowding is a concern, and as we look ahead to the fall, we do anticipate that it will get worse. We continue to do what we can to mitigate this with service reallocations, which up until now has really kept overcrowding levels stable since our fall 2022 service changes. We've been reallocating service, as we've talked about, including a 12% increase in service hours in the Surrey and Langley areas to respond to the significant growth in ridership in that part of the region. But that said, opportunities to reduce overcrowding through reallocation will be very limited for us in the fall and beyond. And with more customers choosing to take transit, there are fewer routes that we can allocate service from without negatively impacting other customers, which poses big problems. And that's why, as we begin the development of our next investment plan, we're specifically focused on identifying options for bus service expansion, backed by developing a sustainable funding strategy in partnership with the province. Additional investment in our transit system, we know, is not only desirable, but absolutely necessary. And as CEO and working with you, working with our staff, know that this is one of my highest priorities, and we are working every day on the planning and funding strategy to achieve this. I'd like to give some construction updates on a series of our projects. I want to note that the province of BC is continuing their pre-construction work on the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain and has issued 3 requests for proposals. These RFPs are related to the design and installation of the SkyTrain track work, new stations, as well as the design, installation, and integration of electrical systems, such as power, telecommunications, and automatic train control. And the province has now started shortlisting firms to submit these RFPs. And once complete, the 16-kilometer elevated extension from King George Station to Langley City Centre will also adhere to the latest crime prevention through environmental design requirements, such as improved lighting and lower profile landscapes. We really look forward to working closely with our project partners through delivery of this transformative infrastructure project that will really improve transit options in the region and help to better connect us all. I'm also excited to see the province making progress on the FIBS Exchange upgrade since work began in late 2022. Once complete, FIBS Exchange will improve the comfort and safety of our customers, better integrate the exchange within the neighborhood, and provide more capacity for future service expansion. We've recently relocated where buses pick up customers at the exchange to support the permanent closure of Bay 4, which will allow for the construction of a new crew room for bus operators, and extra staff we're making available on site to assist customers with this change. The opening of the temporary exchange is anticipated to occur later this summer. And similar to SLS, the upgraded FIBS exchange will also adhere to the latest crime prevention through environmental design requirements with better lighting, more weather protection, and enhanced accessibility. New passenger amenities will include digital passenger information displays, new shelters, better signage, and bike lockers, and this project is expected to be complete in summer of 2022. I'd like to talk about safety for a moment, because in response to recent incidents that have occurred across our communities and on transit, we've begun working on an educational safety campaign, and a new safety message has started playing across the system to raise customer awareness of the 877777 Transit Police text line. And that's just one element of a larger safety campaign focused on raising awareness of this text line. The campaign is also visible elsewhere on the system, including the interior of buses and SkyTrains, transit information panels at bus stops, and digital screens on SkyTrain platforms. And street teams have also been handing out informational cards to customers, really trying to be sure that our riders have tools and information at their fingertips. Transit Police is also recruiting 24 community safety officers by the end of 2023 to deliver a community-focused approach to keeping transit safe. And the first 12 of those officers are currently in the process of being onboarded. And just a few weeks ago, Transit Police's first CSO was officially sworn in. And this program is a first of its kind at Transit Police and presents a great opportunity for anyone with an interest in a career in law enforcement. The safety of our customers and of our employees is our top priority. The fact is that everyone has a right to feel safe on our system. And should anyone ever feel unsafe, please text Transit Police at 877777, or in an emergency, call 911. I'd like to touch on real estate for a moment. And, in partnership with PCI Developments, public engagement took place in May to gather feedback on a proposed development near the future Arbutus SkyTrain station. And the feedback from this initial phase of engagement will be shared with the City of Vancouver as part of the project's rezoning application. Further public engagement on the development work will occur throughout the rezoning and the permitting process. This 30-story development will allow easy access to sustainable transportation options, and it will be located next to the future terminus of the Broadway subway line, an incoming bus loop, and the Arbutus Greenway. And as you know, this is the first development partnership under TransLink's Real Estate Development Program, which aims to generate new independent sources of funding for Metro Vancouver transit sources while building more transit-oriented communities. And on screen is a first look at what the proposed development could look like once complete. This year, the CEO Communities Roundtable series was developed to create open lines of communication with groups across the region who use our transportation system and who may not hear from us through our traditional methods of engagement. And in these meetings, I've had the great opportunity to connect with small groups to receive their feedback on transportation in the region and hear some ideas on what we can improve on. And to best target key community groups, we've organized our first series of roundtables by 3 categories: cultural communities, key user groups, and regional influencers. And to date, we've hosted 2 roundtables with major employers and nonprofit leaders. And tomorrow, we'll host our next roundtable with the Chinese Canadian community. And these roundtables have already proven to be crucial to developing key relationships and building two-way communication as we advance the 10-year priorities. I'm pleased to share that, lastly, that car-free days are back for 2023 and presented by TransLink. These fun-filled festivals are happening all across Metro Vancouver this summer. We're kicking things off on Saturday, June 10th with Car Free Day in Surrey in Newton. Festival goers will enjoy a fun-filled day of music, dance performances, family entertainment, and activities for the whole family, so I hope to see you out there. Car-free days are a great opportunity for everyone to visit and experience the best of their neighborhoods using transit, walking, and cycling, and we'll certainly be announcing more dates and locations soon, and really looking forward to coming out to many of your communities, and I hope you'll join me. Thank you so much. I know that was a lot of updates, but thank you for your time today, and happy to take any questions that you may have. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mayor Little.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for your report here today. In the report, you addressed both accessibility and FIBS exchange, and I think that the time has come for us to inextricably link accessibility with access to washrooms. We have to, in our service, make sure that people who are going to be traveling on transit, maybe they're there for a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, but that they have an option somewhere along their route to be able to use a washroom. And we have this opportunity with FIBS Exchange being reconstructed to not only address the washroom needs and comfort services for our drivers in that space, but also to make sure that there's accessible public washrooms in that area as well. And I think that that's just a role we're going to have going forward is noting that accessibility must include access to public washrooms. And so I'd be curious about your thoughts on that, but just wanted to make sure that you knew that the North Shore was very firm in its assertion that we need to have public washrooms at FIBS Exchange.
Sure. So, Mayor Little, thank you. It's a great question and one that we're certainly taking a close look at. FIBS Exchange is a location where a washroom is being considered. As you may know, we have funding to operate washrooms at 6 locations. That's been included in the investment plan, and we're in the process right now of determining which of those locations have the most customers transferring during long trips. Again, FIBS Exchange is on that list of ones we're looking at where they can be feasibly installed and in locations that are well spaced out throughout our system, right? So if we can only do 6, where's the right locations for those? Plumbing, my understanding is that plumbing is included in the FIBS Exchange upgrade, so we can potentially install and operate a public washroom there eventually. And if FIBS is included in that washroom strategy, which we'll be bringing back to the Mayor's Council, or if more funding to expand is an option in the future, washroom could be installed there at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pahal.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your report. I did want to commend you for looking at a different approach to how we look at ridership. I think if we look to 2019, like you said, our system was bursting at the seams. So it's really not very useful now to say, look how we recovered, because we're at crush load levels, like you said, in the south of Fraser. Just look at the 531. You can't even squeeze anybody on those routes anymore. Or even my experience coming here today, I actually had to wait for a SkyTrain at King George because it was already crowded, and that's the beginning of the line. So I'm glad you're really looking at reframing that for our region. So I just wanted to kind of pass that comment along. The other thing on overcrowding is, are you seeing the same trend in the AM as well as the PM? Because I know your graph showed the PM overcrowding. I'm assuming AM is just as bad as back in the day as well now?
Yeah, Mayor Paul, thank you for the question. Yeah, we did just show the PM. We are seeing similar trends in the AM as well, that overcrowding. And to your first comment, it's important to do some rethinking as we're coming out of the pandemic of how we talk about ridership. Numbers like 84%, 85, 88%, that's great, and those are helpful. I don't think that does justice really to what we're seeing out on the system, to the lived experience of our riders. And so we'll certainly be bringing back to this Mayor's Council different ways of thinking about it, of thinking about how what our customers are experiencing out on the system. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hurley.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I'm just going to mobility issues, as we have had some people speak to this morning, and specifically our service that we're providing for those with mobility issues. And I'm concerned that we're trending in a very bad direction. And 21% of those rides are now on taxis. That seems way above. I know our targets were 7% for taxis, and right now we're at 21%, according to the report I've just read. So I think we need to take a really different approach to Handy Dart, because quite simply what we're doing is not working. And it's letting people down that need it most, that need to get to appointments, that need to get to job interviews or wherever else they may be going. I'm told by some people that, taxis come and they're not equipped to do this work. And they're dropping people off, in really dark areas at 7 a.m. in the morning, and they're off to their next ride. And that's not the taxi's fault. That's That's the business that they're in. So we need to do a better job of looking after those who need us most, and that's those with mobility issues. So I'd really like to see a report come back, laying out actual facts about how we're looking after these people. And also, I note that you mentioned roundtables. So are we doing any roundtables with those with mobility issues? Because it seems to me like we have a long way to go to provide a really acceptable service. And, I think this is something we all need to approach. And it's about looking after people. So those are my comments. I just wonder if you have any comments about ways that we're looking at improving service.
Sure. Mayor Hurley, thank you for the question. So the increase in taxi trips is on our radar. And I just, want to note that we are absolutely committed to providing a high quality experience for our Handy Dart customers. The number of trips provided by taxi service, I need to look into the numbers. The number I have is 17%. That's still higher than we want it to be. That is up from 7% in 2021 and higher than we want. If First Transit doesn't have enough operators to cover a trip, they will arrange for a taxi for customers at no additional cost. But we don't want that, right? We don't want those trips provided by a taxi. And that, so related to that, we're really pushing our contractor to hire more operators, which helps to solve that issue. First Transit hired 36 more operators so far in 2023 and plans on hiring 40 more this year, which will help bring that supplemental taxi number down. We do also, I want to note, we have our Handy Dart User Advisory Committee as well as our Access Transit Advisory Committee that we consult with regularly. And those roundtables will also involve meeting with those with mobility issues and concerns, and happy to report back as you've requested on these issues.
Yes. And, I just back to the taxi issue. And since the taxi services were taken out of the control of cities, and now we've gone to car ride share, and which was one of the things I opposed when we went that direction, was there's nothing that says that car share has to provide wheelchair accessible vehicles anywhere, whereas we used to be able to ask taxis to provide a percentage of accessible vehicles. So, this is another reason why I think we really need to revisit. And when is our contract up with the service we're providing right now? How we run through our contractors?
So I believe it's 2025, but let me get back to you on that to confirm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director McCutcheon.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Many of my concerns were just raised by Vice Chair Hurley, so I certainly echo all of his concerns. I'd also like to take the chance to thank our speakers earlier this morning for coming in and speaking to us about this issue. It's not really in our purview, but I really appreciate them coming and speaking here, and I do have a couple other questions. So just to clarify then, the 99% of requested rides that were met, that includes all the ones taken by taxi, is that right?
Yes, that's right. So as customers request trips, meeting them whether by taxi or by First Transit, we met 99.6% of those requests.
Okay, I guess I'd like to see those broken out, just because it really sounded from our speakers like it's a very different experience, and I certainly can appreciate that. And
can do that.
I'm not sure that that doesn't. Yes, they got there, but it feels that that's not the kind of service that we want to be providing. So to Vice Chair Hurley's point, I would like to see a report back. I'm not sure how it comes to us, but just on the services, I'm wondering with the contractor here, are we able to get the data that we need? Do you do your own data collection, or do we get data through the contractor, or both around ridership, but also around the experience the users?
We do. So we do our own survey work. We get data from the contractor as well. We can also pull from our own kind of complaint line that we have, and we publish all that data publicly. We just put out a couple months ago our Handy Dart service performance review for 2022 that's publicly available on our website and summarizes a lot of that information. Happy to bring that back as it relates to the customer experience, which is what I think you're really getting at.
It is, yeah. And then the other piece of that are the customers that didn't get there, so they maybe didn't even make the request because the system's just not set up. I'm not saying it isn't, but I'm wondering if there's work being done to sort of look at those that maybe arrived at the facility that one of our speakers spoke at on her own, or to sort of find out where we're maybe missing. Yep. If we are missing those people that really need it, but it's just not set up in a way. So I'd love if we could have a report back just on kind of whether we are meeting the needs, because I agree that this is a really critical service that we need to be providing.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to do that, Director McCutcheon. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. I do just want to note in terms of a report back, that'll be for our information. No decision making. This body has no ability to make any decision making in relation to that. And in that vein, I do want to, I want to, as I did earlier in echoing Director McCutcheon's comments, thank our delegation, our speakers who came before us, and also encourage them to go speak to the board as well. The board accepts delegations, and strongly encourage them to go make a similar presentation to the board. With that, I'll take a motion to receive the report. Move second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. We will need to quicken the pace. Next is an update on the transit funding models from peer agencies. Sarah Ross, I believe.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. Joining me today is Nick Lovett, the lead planner on our funding strategy work. As Kevin noted, we have significant need in our region for expansion and significant funding challenges to overcome. As part of our ongoing work on sustainable funding, we have undertaken research on the funding models that are used by our peer agencies. Comparisons have limitations because of differences in mandate. So, for example, TransLink funds roads and cycling, and our peer transit agencies don't do that. There are other differences in structures and, overall funding for public services and infrastructures in other regions and how those are managed. This report provides a comparison between Metro Vancouver and Toronto, Montreal, and Calgary. Just the key findings, that are, in Metro Vancouver, we have more diverse sources. Our tax rates on property taxes are lower in Metro Vancouver compared to the other regions we looked at. On the flip side, there is a higher reliance here on other locally collected taxes, such as fuel and parking taxes. Also, there isn't a funding tool currently being used in another agency in Canada that we aren't already are using or are very well aware of already and evaluating as part of the work we're doing on our long-term sustainable funding strategy. So I will just pass it to Nick to provide a little bit more detail, and then we're happy to take your questions.
Thanks very much, Sarah. So as Sarah just mentioned, comparisons are very difficult, both because of the particular mandate and structure of our peer agencies across Canada, but also we're a regional agency. We have a defined region, and it's a little trickier to start defining what a comparable region is versus a municipality. So the service area and population can sometimes differ, but we've tried our best to make those comparisons. And while we're the only operator that has this multimodal mandate, we have the set of funding tools to match as well. In considering how the funding tools match with mandate, you can see we have a much broader mix of funding sources. We've taken this data from CUDA's 2019 fact book. There is the most recent year is 2021, and we've omitted to use that because senior government transfer payments for COVID relief came in at different times with their different peer agencies. So this was the cleanest comparison we can show to think about how our peers are normally funded. So the split between vehicle-based sources, transit sources, and property is quite notable. While in Ontario there is a gas tax collected and remitted to municipalities and transit operators. It's very small, it's 2 cents a litre. In Montreal, there is a vehicle levy and a small 3 cent per litre gas tax in the service area. And this compares to a much higher proportion from vehicle-based sources given our unique mandate. Importantly, the property-based sources are lower because the average citizen or average taxpayer is also contributing through the fuel pump as well as the fare box. And when we look at those figures taken together, this bottom line here of own source funding per capita shows that the average citizen is contributing roughly the same amount across our peer agencies, and we're getting good transit outcomes as well. So our revenue service hours per capita are fairly similar. We're getting good transit performance, and we haven't sort of found a funding model that jumps out as being particularly strong. The Greater Toronto Area is a very complex funding model. We've provided, for comparison here, what the TTC's funding model looks like compared to sort of its regional peer GO and Metrolinx. They do not have a property tax. They operate on a lot of provincial subsidies. They're a crown corporation. But in aggregate, sort of the census metropolitan area of Greater Toronto, with about half a dozen operators, contribute a sort of a lower amount, and on average they'll have lower service hours per capita and commensurate performance as well. So I guess the key points from the report are this diverse funding portfolio reflects our diversity of mandate, and while property taxes may seem lower, they're contributed from sort of an average citizen in a number of ways through our fuel tax and parking tax within the region. So this funding model that's sort of reflected with our mandate is also reflected from the initial intent of creating the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority to be this autonomous, self-sufficient agency with this multimodal mandate, and it's been relatively steady and reflected over time. We're happy to take any questions on the report.
Mayor McEwen. Yeah, excellent report, and it's one of the things that the years that I've been on this council, the Mayor's Council, it seems like senior governments are always looking towards the property tax as that there's plenty of room to be able to add to it. I think this is an important message that all of us at this council need to be able to convey back, that the property tax portion or the personal portion is coming in different ways, but it matches other agencies. So I can be rest assured that when as the gas tax keeps diminishing, that they're going to be putting more and more pressure on the property taxes. So I think, like I said, a great report. I think we all just need to really be able to focus on the fact when we get pushed back towards this. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Sager. Can you turn your mic on?
Sorry, I'm just curious as to how our fares compare with the other. What do our users pay by comparison to, say, what you would pay for a similar trip in Montreal?
So we've added the cash fare for the bus here in this table, just above the red box, and we've opted for cash fare rather than average fare paid, due to we have a zone system, so that the fares differ. Plus the primary challenge in separating out an average fare versus sort of a comparable cash fare paid is we report our average fare in our annual reports as the sum of all direct fare paid through the fare box plus our program revenue from the BC Bus Pass and the U-Pass. And that can have an effect on what the average fare will look like if you take into account these transfer payments from the Ministry of Social Development for the BC Bus Pass. And we don't report that as a provincial transfer. We report it as part of our program revenue. And we're really not sure how our other peer agencies in Calgary and Toronto and Montreal, if they have similar discount programs, where that funding comes from, how they report it. So we've opted to move away from this average fare to this cash fare. And you can see here, the 2023 cash fare is lower than our peer agencies.
Thank you. I see it in the chart now. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments or questions, motion to receive the report. Move second. All's in favor? Opposed and carried. Okay. Next is a report on planning and managing major projects.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mayor's Council. My name is Marisa Espinosa. I'm the Director for TransLink Planning and Policy's Major Studies Group. I'm submitting this report for information, and I'm joined today by Jeffrey Busby, who's the Vice President of Engineering. Just to provide an overview, this report is submitted for information at the request of the Mayor's Council, who is interested in learning more about the Ottawa LRT experience and how lessons learned from that case study could potentially be applicable to projects in Metro Vancouver. It's interesting as a case study because, along with an overview of how TransLink plans and manages major projects, it's helpful to perhaps inform proactive response to mitigate risk for future TransLink projects. You have your report in front of you, but I'll just synthesize and summarize some of the key takeaways. Much of this is in the public domain because the LRT process was found through a public inquiry to try and understand root causes of some of the negative customer experiences that were happening because of the project. So a couple of key takeaways. In terms of that case study, the specific delivery model did influence the outcomes of the project. So in that case, they chose a design, build, finance, and maintain model. And so it was a fixed price cost model, which was problematic as problems were discovered through the commissioning process. Second, the project requirements and system integration was problematic because of some of the lack of integration experience on behalf of OC Transpo, which was the city's transit agency responsible for the LRT operation. And finally, project governance and the city's response to issues as they arose also became a difficult topic because as issues emerged, there wasn't an incentive for the groups to work together to problem solve. The context with Metro Vancouver and the Ottawa context are quite different, but there are some potential learnings for TransLink. One is our delivery model selection, another is integration and delivery, and a third is budgets and schedules. So these are all opportunities for us to really think deeply as we deliver more projects in the future or work with our partners to deliver projects in the future, that the right procurement model is an important selection factor. Also that we have a lot of experience in complex integration of project delivery in this region, and so that really sets us up for success. And finally, for budgets and schedule, it's important that we do several steps in the process to look and validate at several stages of planning to ensure that the right risk is priced into the project as it progresses and as more information is known. I would just add that our approach is to take a structured business casing approach as we manage and plan major projects. We not only focus on the price, the cost, and the risk, but we focus on the key customer experience outcomes that we want to see on behalf of the region. We look certainly at financial and operational objectives, but in planning and managing the region's transportation system, we take seriously the impact of socioeconomic benefits, environmental benefits, Indigenous reconciliation, equity, diversity, and inclusion as part of our business case framework. We consider the most beneficial initiatives on behalf of the region. We certainly look at cost effectiveness, and we include a sound understanding of how we might mitigate and manage adverse impacts as we discover through the planning process impacts because of project planning or potential risks in implementation. I'll turn it over to Jeff if there are any key findings on the delivery side, but just wanted to synthesize that the report, I think, provides a good overview of lessons learned that we can pay attention to for this region.
Thanks, Marissa. I think that's a good overview of the report. I look forward to any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Mayor Brody.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make the comment, much of which was said during the committee meeting. I just want to highlight the fact that the last report showed how relatively low our property taxes are compared to other regions. And I realize that context was given to that, but it's easy to forget about that context and just look at the graph that's on page 11 of 19. And then we move into a study of the P3 model, which was the central issue in the controversy over the Canada line, and has probably been the biggest controversy that this organization has ever dealt with, which ultimately led to the change of governance for TransLink. So I just want to highlight the fact that, first of all, in terms of comparing to Ottawa, we could be far more applicable. I think if we compared, if we looked at the Canada line experience, if we want to look at P3, but I mostly want to highlight the fact that the incidence of property tax and the use of that as a funding tool and the contemplation of a P3 model are two of the ongoing most contentious issues that this body has faced over the years, and it should not be underestimated by fairly calm comments about these matters. They are truly extraordinarily complex and controversial, and we shouldn't lose sight of that.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, motion to receive the report. So moved. Moved, seconded. All's in favor. Opposed, carried. Motion to adjourn. Moved, second. All's in favor. Opposed, carried. Okay, we'll have a brief break while the room's cleared, and then we'll resume.